Hey, y'all. Welcome into the Advocates halftime live chat for LSU football. I hope you've been enjoying the first half so far. It hasn't been pretty at all times. I'd like to welcome you all in. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Creed and Creed, who are our kind sponsors for this segment. We're having some technical difficulties at first. I think my mic's coming in a little too loud, so I'm going to try to fix that for you. Hope that's a little better. But yeah, so what I want to do is get some questions, get some answers to y'all regarding what we've seen in the first half, which has been a bit uneven, especially from Miles Brennan, second start in his college career, and it's been up and down. I mean, he's had a few nice throws, but he's had a few really questionable throws, especially that interception in the second quarter that led to Vanderbilt's only score. LSU kind of got off easy at the end of the first half with a missed field goal, missed chip shot from Vanderbilt. This could be a 21-10 game, which, you know, if you're LSU, you came in here, you really want to make a statement, and they haven't done that so far, other than maybe Terrace Marshall, who has just been a touchdown machine. He's got 10 catches so far this season. 4 of them have been for touchdowns. The LSU record was set by Jamar Chase last year with 20. He did that in 15 games. Terrace is going to have to do it in a couple fewer games because they only have 10 regular season games to kind of get that done. And currently, he's on pace. he's on pace to do that. 2 touchdowns per game. That'll get it going. I'm going to throw in some photo highlights from the first half here so you can watch them. I'm going to mute myself while I take a quick drink and throw any questions you have in the comments, and I'll see what I can do to get those answered. All right, hope y'all can hear me now. Let's go through the stats again. You get Terrace Marshall, 2 catches, 67 yards. John J. Kirkland, 2 catches, 36 yards. John Emery, 2 catches for 19 down the list. John J. Kirkland had that long catch and run, 28 yards in the first quarter to get LSU on the board. And then obviously Terrace Marshall with that long catch. John Emery has been leading the way on the ground. 6 carries for 69 yards. He's really the only one that's done a ton in the run game, which has been a little disappointing to see. Chris Curry hasn't had a carry yet. Darian Davis-Price, 5 for 16. You really need to see him get that going, especially with that big line advantage like you're going to have against Vanderbilt. Let's see. Got a few questions coming in here. First, it's frustrating. What's the matter with our defensive middle? It's tough. It's tough. You don't want to see them, on both sides of the ball. I think you're seeing some issues. You're seeing some issues stopping the run. You're seeing some issues running the ball. Javion Marlowe, 10 carries, 62 yards. Wakefield has 11 carries for 36 yards. And they kind of get gashed on these kind of cutback runs. They need to be a little more composed there. But in general, I think that the pass defense has held up well. It's tough to gauge because Vanderbilt's a team where you really have that huge advantage in the trenches, and they just haven't taken advantage of it. But I think so far you really need to see them kind of turn around and dominate the second half to really have a lot of confidence. Obviously, Terrace Marshall's going to be there, but you want to see Eric Gilbert get involved. And you need to see a little bit more action out of Miles Brennan in terms of making the defense work, making them cover at all levels. He seems to get a little jumpy and release that ball quickly. We're gonna cut here to a quick ad from our sponsors, and then when we come back, we'll get to some more viewer questions. But first, a word from Creed and Creed.
This is not a dramatization or a paid testimonial. I'm Christian Creed, and let me tell you, car wrecks can wreck lives. As a former insurance adjuster and as a licensed accident investigator, I've handled hundreds of accident claims. If you or a loved one have been involved in a car accident, no matter how big or small, let me put my experience to work for you. Call Creed and Creed. We're serious attorneys for serious injuries.
All right, back in here. Thanks again to our sponsors, Creed and Creed. And let's hit some viewer questions here. This isn't really a question, it's an observation. Brennan has 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. That is not bad. That is true. You got to remember this guy's in his second career start with LSU, and he's coming into a situation where he didn't really have a real preseason. He has all these young receivers he's never worked with before. He's got an offensive line he's never worked with before, at least to the extent of throwing them passes in games, and it's going to take a little time. If Miles Brennan looks a little jumpy, it's because he's a little jumpy. He's been there for a while, but he hasn't seen a ton of live action, especially in games that matter. He came in a lot last year. The Vanderbilt game last year, he had a lot of passes and he threw a touchdown, but that was mop-up duty. That was not, these high-pressure situations. And until you see him deal with it, you're going to have to kind of live with the learning experience that you would, in normal seasons, be having against UT San Antonio, and you would be having against, whoever else they would have played early in the season that they're just not playing. Vanderbilt, I think this is a very good, important game for him in that regard, because he's going to be able to do things against Vanderbilt and kind of just get that rhythm and flow before he goes and he faces some of the top tier matchups. That Mississippi State matchup is very difficult. They have they run a lot of stunts in the line, and that's a tough thing to deal with for a young quarterback. But yeah, I think he played much better in the second half against Mississippi State. He's made some nice throws here tonight, and I think you're going to see them open it up a little bit here in the second half. LSU has to pass more to score more. I disagree with that. I think they need to run the ball. I think LSU last year, that's a bit of a red herring in terms of the idea that you can just come out here and chuck the ball all around the field. This year, you're going to want to see them take advantage. They have 3 really good running backs, and they need to be able to use them in pressure situations. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a really good back, and I think he spoiled LSU a little bit because he was able to do things that perfectly complemented Joe Burrow. He was able to run that read option. He was able to make people miss in space and always make that right cut, make that right decision. He was dependable catching the ball out of the backfield. And now you have 3 running backs who you're kind of split between, and you don't know who's going to do what best. I think John Emery looked really good. There he is on the screen. He looked really good. He looked really shifty. He has a lot, he has a lot of mobility and short range speed, if that makes sense, where he can get into a phone booth and make a guy miss. And that's something that LSU really needs. But they also need a guy who he can just pound into the line, and I haven't seen that from anybody yet. You think Chris Curry could be that guy, but it's tough. It's tough. It's so early, and this is such a weird matchup. Let's go to another one. The drive by Vandy for the half was set up by poor special teams. Yeah, special teams has been questionable. That return at the end, that shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen, especially when, LSU, if anything, they should always have premier athletes on special teams because they're recruiting premier athletes on top of premier athletes. So those young guys, that's how they get on the field, is in special teams. So they should always have an advantage on Vanderbilt in that regard. And when Vanderbilt's getting a long return in that moment, it's because there was a letdown, and and they didn't play special teams fundamentally sound. So that's something that is important to watch. I think they've done well on the opposite side. They've returned the ball well, and especially having Derek Stingley back in there. They haven't thrown at him once, and I don't expect them to. And he's been an asset in the return game. And I think that you'll see them kind of pour it on here in the second half. Well, again, thanks to our sponsor, Creed and Creed. Thanks for tuning in and sticking with me through some of the technical difficulties. We're still kind of ironing some of that out. But we'll see y'all next week. Peace.